Why your parents won't understand you. So recently, I've had a few different interactions that I've had in my life that have been making me think about this specific disconnect. Right? There's been an obvious disconnect that I can see and observe in my own life and also in other people's lives as well between generation to generation. So I'll say specifically Gen Z to their parents' generation. There seems to be a disconnect in understanding, a disconnect in experience, and this will alter the relationship, and I do believe this will be the start to a big misunderstanding that will hopefully be resolved in a few years. But for the time being, it looks like something that people don't really understand. Um, and it's part of the reason is because if we're being honest, most of the advice our parents give us, we actually can't use. Right? I was thinking about this the other day. The only thing your parents can really teach you is morals and values. Outside of that, they are speaking from a place of inexperience through what we're going through in today's modern time, which is drastically different to the time of their time, right? We live in a completely different everything, different economy, um, different social climate, different because of the phone, right? Different because of technology and things like that that pretty much alter the entire perception that you have not only of yourself, of the world, of society, of a lot of different things. But I do want to point out in today's episode a specific niche that I observe. Right. If you do not know who I am, my name is Champ, and I help men win. I'll be helping you today by giving you hopefully a little bit of experience, a little bit of a reminder of the observations that I have within today's society that will hopefully give you a favorable position. So I was having a conversation the other day with my family, and we if you know me, I have a younger brother. Um, my brother, he's 15. He's about to be 16 here soon. And what I've realized, and I've made jokes about this in the past, when I observe he's going into his junior year right now. He's in summer break. I recognize that not only my brother, who seems to be, a guy who works on himself. He's been going to the gym for an extended period of time. Good looking dude. It seems like a lot of the kids, and I observed this specifically with my family. We have a bunch of kids that are around the same age. They're like sophomore to junior. Some a little older, some a little younger, but they're all in the same type of age range, and they're all not having an experience that is very similar to the one that I had. And we're in the same generation. And this is something that I've observed and something that I've thought about. I think they're living through an extended childhood. And you must think, okay, what is the transition between, going from childhood to an adolescence to adulthood or whatever, right? And the thing that I could point out in particular is sexual maturity, right? That's the only thing that makes sense, right? To be able to begin to distinguish, attraction for the opposite sex and things like that, right? That's something that I experienced at a much earlier age than even my brother's generation, who's still a part of my generation, the later years of my generation. And I find that to be very, very interesting. And so, so not only is it different than my experience, it's completely different from my parents' experience. And I want to go back to the conversation I was having with my family. We were observing the fact that these children, I'm not gonna call them children. They're gonna be men in a couple of years, right? That these young boys are not going out there and getting social experience that they absolutely need, right? Like I said, with dating and things like that. To me personally, right, I started dating very early, right? Maybe even earlier than a lot of the people that are my age, but way earlier than my brother and the couple of cousins that I have. And what I think this is a symptom of something that's going to be much greater, right? So I had mentioned that is what I perceive to be, or what seems to be, an extended childhood, and then I observe my own personal experience of today. I'm in Gen Z. I'm 24, and my personal experience is an extended adolescence in a weird way, where yes, I'm mature. Yes, I can handle my own shit. But in the same breath, a lot of these people that are going through this experience, that are around my age are essentially feeling like their life is a little bit delayed. You might be mature in a couple of other ways, but you're probably immature in some other ways as well, right? Most people in my generation still live with their parents, for example, right? Or like I said, maybe they're even delaying, finding a relationship, having children, things like that. And that is the extension of adolescence, that adolescent period where you're trying to begin to carve out your own path, right? Trying to individualize yourself from your parents. And it seems as if with the current climate of today, right, the economic standing that we are in, um, and I'll just point out that has been very limiting to the experience that I'm supposed to be having as a 24-year-old. A 24-year-old, in my estimation, 24-year-olds of the past, you're supposed to be moved out of your parents' house. You're supposed to be damn near buying a house by now. You're supposed to be having children by now. But I can observe thoroughly that most people that are my age don't have any children, are still living with their parents, and have never moved out, right? Or that's the same thing as what I just had mentioned. But you see what I'm saying? That there's a few common things that are happening that would have already supposed to have happened that are not happening. And I think this is very, very interesting because this goes into my main point of the disconnection between the understanding of our parents, right? When they're trying to understand us, there's going to be a clear and obvious disconnection because they have never experienced this. They have never even observed anybody who's had this experience. So when I had mentioned earlier, right, the only thing that I think that they can provide and truly provide a value, even if they even have it down packed themselves, is their morals and values. That's the only thing that they can really give. I do believe that previous generations had the ability to prescribe more than just that when it comes to giving advice. But quite frankly, I see it where they are so disconnected because they are not experiencing. I'm not going to say no parent or no. I don't know. I don't know what generation it is. Whatever generation our parents are. If you're in Gen Z, um, whatever age range, but they don't experience the true economic disparity because maybe they've already solidified their career. Maybe they've been working at their career for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe even more than that. My parents damn near almost 30 years into their career, but they don't necessarily see. They see things going up. Obviously, gas is going up, groceries is going up. The Even for this, for example, right, the house that my parents bought like 12 years ago is like damn near doubled in price, and I think that's interesting, because that goes to show the entire landscape of how everything's moving so fast, yet our wages are not able to keep up, and that is obviously a huge problem because like my generation, for example, good luck buying a house, especially doing it at this age. Good luck buying a house. Good luck being able to afford to just live by yourself, let alone with children, let alone with your woman or your whoever's your spouse, right? And this has been very, very interesting, man. I just think that they can't really give us that much advice. They can't. Why? Because they've never lived this experience. We've never lived their experience, but I'll tell you right now, in a lot of different ways, it's a lot more favorable. And I talked about this in a previous podcast before. I talked about the American dream, right? Or what I would like to call the experience of Gen Z, the American nightmare. The American nightmare is essentially where we are not incentivized the same way to do the same things that our parents did when they got a different result than what we had. You could have been working since you were 18. You could have been working since you were 16 and still not be able to have a lot of the things that our parents who didn't really have to, think about these things so thoroughly, were able to achieve, right? So I think that is a very, very interesting thing, and the way that I want to describe it is the way that I had wrote it a little bit earlier. Gen Z is a well-informed victim of the world of the current state of circumstances. My Through my estimation, it looks like they're just trying to crush our spirit, right? We're in a unique generation because we didn't really grow up with phones like that. We did, but we didn't. It was into our like a little bit before our teen years where we got to experience phones and things like that. But we're not overly cooked like the or like later generations after us who are growing up with phones in their hands or tablets or whatever. But we're also not like our parents who didn't grow up with any of that shit. You see what I'm saying? So what what I will say is we are way more informed than our parents are. Way more, especially for our age. We are way more informed than they were at this age. And what is that? What does that really do? And I said it specifically in the message that I had just um, spoke on, right? Gen Z being a well-informed victim. That is the exact way that I see it. We know exactly what's going on. We know exactly how fucked the world actually is. We know exactly how we're getting fucked in this game of life. And yet, we still have to play the game. It's one thing to be getting fucked in the game, but to not know what's happening and still continue to play and maybe still be able to achieve part or most of the American dream. It's an entirely different experience to know you're getting fucked before you even attend the game. Once you attend the game, you realize that you have no power, you have no influence, and you have pretty much nothing when compared to our parents. And that is that disconnection that I'm talking about. A lot of people living with their parents still. Parents are probably thinking, you guys are a bunch of fucking lazy losers. What are you doing? When I was your age, I was at this life point, and you're not. What's wrong with you? And while they do have a few fair points, you don't understand. You simply don't understand. You could never understand. And that's what it is. All you can do is observe. And I just think this is very, very interesting because it's not something that I think a lot of people are able to articulate properly to their parents to be able to get them to understand the current standing that they're truly in. For me, even for me, I have a podcast. I've been able to speak and been working on my speech for a little bit over 4 years now, and I still can't fully articulate exactly what I mean, exactly what's going on, to be able to understand why we're in the position that we're in. So we were able to ask a lot more questions, and I can at least speak for myself. I've been able to ask and answer a lot more questions than my parents did at this age, even a couple years ago, with access to the information that I was accessing, right, curating my own information to be favorable for me in my life. I was able to ask questions that made the world make a lot less sense. And with that being said, even a thing like this, right? What is a life? What does it mean to actually live? What is worthy of our time? Right? I'm going to begin. I'm going to ask a lot of questions that I was asking myself. Why should you work? What does work look like? What's the intention of work besides just getting paid? Do you work without meaning? Do you work without purpose? Is there such thing as work without purpose, or are you just wasting your life? These are things that I've asked myself that I know for damn sure my parents never had to ask themselves. They never even considered. All they did was just follow suit because that's what everyone else is doing. They don't question anything. They never questioned anything. So now our generation, and like I said, I can only speak from my personal experience, but I'm a person who questions a lot of things. I'm a person who recognizes that we're getting fucked. I'm a person who's always been a good observer of my environment. And with that being said, to understand and observe the average person who's living and working without purpose, without meaning, without any fulfillment, and also to be understanding that the average person in my generation is not going to be able to have children. They're not going to be able to afford their own place. They're not going to be able to even build a sustainable career. A lot of these people in my generation who have went to college and have known that they've wasted their time, not only their time, their life, not only their time and their life, but now they're in debt. A lot of these people who go to college, get a degree, get out, and are working the same job that I'm working right now without a degree. And that's the harsh reality of the Gen Z experience. This adds to the connection of why your parents won't understand you. The prescription that they've given you for guidance to how to live this life didn't work. And what does that mean? What does that entail? What does that say about everything? You see what I'm saying? When they were our age, it seemed like very logical to go ahead and go to college, to go ahead and get a good job, because college is going to provide you a good job. But what if I told you that college doesn't guarantee that. And it doesn't guarantee it for at least 50% of every single person that's went to college. I think they say 50%, I don't know, it's around this. It's around this. It's 50% of people who graduate high school go to college. And 50% of those people are actually able to get a job in what they go to college and went to get a further education in. So that means 25% of the entire population either has a degree, essentially isn't working, isn't doing anything. You see what I'm saying? They aren't doing anything. They didn't have an intent. They're just kind of going along with what life has provided them, right? They're nothing more than a feather in the wind, right? But yeah, these are the things that our parents told us. Hey, you should do this. This is gonna make sense. This worked when I was your age. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. So with that being said, that's gonna further the disconnection. I want to get back to some of the topics that I mentioned a little bit earlier, right? The extended adolescence. This was an interesting concept when I had first encountered it. I encountered it by watching. If you know this guy, he's fucking hilarious. If you don't know him, then do what you. If you want to do your research, you can. This guy named Gerber Johnson. He's this young guy he's a little bit younger than me, and he's a person that's a complete goofball, right? But is a person that is also very, very intellectual when it comes to the things in which he thinks about. He has a very similar set of observations through his experience. And he talks about this, and when he had said that the extended adolescence, right? I was like, damn, that's exactly what it is. It's to feel like you're a teenager still, but you're not a teenager, and you've been out of your teens probably for 5 years. And part of that reason, our parents have to be understanding. I do believe that it's going to take. It's a very very fucked situation because you think about it, right? If you were our parents, when they turn 18 or shortly after they turn 18, they'll go to college or maybe they'll get a job, be able to afford their own shit and move out. Once you look at that, most of us aren't moving out. Tough. That's just what it is. That's just what it is. So with that being said, imagine how we feel. We're stuck with you guys. And maybe we are, maybe we're not, right? If your parents are, nice enough people to go ahead and let you live with them, that's something that I do believe is a true advantage if you do take advantage of it. It also could be something that is a complete disadvantage, which is going to be the reason why a lot of people want to move out early, amidst the lacking financial situation that is actually able to back up and support that decision. So, with that being said, we're both kind of fucked. Not only do we not actually have the standing that is going to allow us to get out of the situation that we're in, which is living with our parents, but our parents are stuck with us a lot of the time, right? Some of the parents are just like, get the fuck out of my house. You're 18, you should be able to handle your own shit. But that is that disconnection that I'm talking about when it comes to parents not being able to understand us. And it's as simple as that, right? Extended childhood, I'll go back to, like I said, another point that I mentioned earlier, right? Extended childhood. Part of this is going to go hand in hand with, a delay in social behavior, right? This is something that we see all too often. We're supposed to be more connected more than ever because we have the internet, but yet people are more socially challenged than they've ever been. And part of that is going to be, a lot of the distractions that are, right? Part of that is, parents coddling their children, trying to protect them. That is going to be another thing that is going to be very, very detrimental to the development of a child, or rather, a person trying to become a man, or a person trying to become a woman. And some of us have social pressure, right? For me, I add social pressure to, let's just say, my younger brother who's in this experience, who they don't even know, right? I didn't have a real extended childhood for reasons I described a little bit earlier. Now I'm experiencing the extended adolescence. My brother's generation, people his age, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, are going to be experiencing twofold. They're going to be experiencing not only an extended childhood, but also an extended adolescence. Unless you're able to do something miraculous, or the entire economic system falls on its head and completely changes, or, people in Gen Z say, hey, we're sick and tired of this shit. You guys are fucking us in this game, and we must do something about it. But I don't see any of those happening, quite frankly. So with that being said, they're going to be the first generation to experience the extended childhood and extended adolescence. And what does that mean? That means you're going to be in your 30s when you start your 20s. Our parents' 20s are now our 30s. You see what I'm saying? That is our new 20s is going to be our 30s in a weird way. And we're going to spend years 18 to 29 trying to get the fuck out of the position that we're in, because I do believe we're in a hole. We need to dig ourselves out of the hole and then be able to grow from there. And that is what I see. That is my observations. This is nothing but a guy who's just a young guy, observing the world for what it is, right? And I'm not on here to, throw a pity party. I'm not really the type to, I don't want to just come on here and bitch, not, provide any solutions. But what I will say is you must do something miraculous in this life, especially if you're going to be a young person. If you're watching this right now, if you're under the age of 23, I'm going to tell you right now, you must take all the risks possible. Regardless of your circumstance, you must take a lot of risk. Because if not, you're going to be finding yourself in a position that's going to be less than ideal by so much that you have absolutely no idea until years have passed by. So take some risk. Because here's the thing. Most people are going to lose this game anyways. Most people are going to be even less than average. I spoke about this on my most recent podcast that I had did 4 weeks ago, which that is completely my fault. But I mentioned a point where I was like, man, I totally forgot. Essentially, you need to be able to get yourself out of the position, right? Most people are going to be fucked in this game, like I've already described. And on top of that, in order to attain, this is what I was trying to mention, in order to attain an average life for our generation, you're going to have to do way more, maybe even 2 or 3 times as much as our parents did. But in the same breath, it's also easier to be at the top of the game. To be at the top of the hierarchies of life is easier than ever. Financially, spiritually, all that. It's going to be way, 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 way more easy to get to the top of those things. Our previous generations that, our parents' generation, it was much harder to attain these luxuries of life, but it was much easier to attain the average existence, which we call the American dream. So, with that being said, you must take more risks. The riskiest thing you can do in today's era is to not take any risks at all. We know where this is headed. If you're content working 40, 50 years and then retiring, be my guest. There's going to be plenty of that, for sure. Or at least at the attempt. Is it even guaranteed? Who knows? Who knows? To me, I don't think it's guaranteed. If I stay at a job for the next 30, 40 years, is retirement guaranteed? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows what the financial landscape is going to look like in 30 to 40 years? Because I fucking have no idea. And to say that you have any idea is to be completely naive to what's going on in the world today. I'm not sure where we will be. But all I can tell you is where I think we're going. And for me, ever since I was about 18 years old, I've said a lot of these things. A lot of these things that are coming to fruition right now, I've been aware of these things. I said, and I had observed with the information that I had, I knew college was going to take a shit just like it's taking a shit right now. I knew at 18, this is what I had told my parents. I said, I'm not going to go to college because by the time I'm out of college, the value of the college degree would have gone down drastically, and it wouldn't even have mattered. Once you look at that, I was right. Right. So that being said, I'm not saying, don't go to college. I'm not saying, you need to live a conventional way, but I'm saying here's the thing. At the very least, if you want to live a unconventional life, you must take an unconventional path. That is something that our parents don't really understand, right? So, to end it off, if you're in Gen Z, you're experiencing one or even both of these, right? Extended childhood, extended adolescence. So what do you do with that time is up to you. For me, what it looks like to me, what makes the most sense for me on the chessboard, what move to make next, is going to look like trying to be more than average. Building a personal brand seems to be one of the best answers and antidotes. It's not guaranteed. But I heard Dan Coe once say, even if it takes you 10 years to build a personal brand, what the fuck else could you be doing? and that is the truth. It is going to be worthy of your time to build a personal brand, no matter how long it takes in order to find some growth. Maybe you'll be able to replace your income. That's my goal. My goal by, what are we in 2026? By 2030, if I can replace my income, I would like to be able to do it by the end of next year for damn sure. If I can replace my income, that is going to be completely ideal, right? So you don't have to work. I can, work on the things that I'm truly passionate about, things that bring me fulfillment, things that are purposeful, things aligned with my true morals and values. Instead of just selling out to a company for the next 30 to 40 years, even though I fucking hate every single minute of it, that just doesn't make that much sense to me. And it's almost like Pandora's box. Our Gen Z is like Pandora's box in a weird way, right? We've been exposed to a lot of information. You can't undo what we know. But with that being said, it is completely up to our ability to be able to act with the knowledge that we have, right? The biggest thing that is going to lead to our downfall for this generation is being able to know so much and have so much overload of information that we don't know how to act, and you don't act at all. So, if you're a person in Gen Z, do more. In a weird way, think less. We are already thinking way more. We're way more ahead when it comes to social observations, when it comes to wisdom, when it comes to distraction in general. All those, yes, we are way ahead of our parents. But at the very least, it's not about what you know. It's about what you do with what you know. And that's pretty much it. This is why your parents won't understand you. Hopefully, I have given you a little bit more of talking points when it comes to trying to understand or trying to communicate the situation that you're living in and that you're experiencing right now, right? All I'm going to try to do is going to constantly try to get better at this, because I do believe we're going to be in for a lot more interesting conversations that have to deal with this exact circumstance. And this will be the talk of conversations for the next couple of years, so buckle up. That's all I have to say. My name is Champ. This is episode 267 of the Life of Champ podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you leave a comment if any of this resonated or if you agree with any of what I had said. Other than that, next podcast is going to be on Thursday, hopefully. So tap in with that for sure. I do want to apologize. It's been about a month since I've filmed my last episode. I realized through that period of time that I need to find a balance between, creating content and also being able to have experiences to talk about. I feel like a lot of people, especially in Gen Z, maybe they have a lot of information, but they don't have that much experience. I knew that was something that I knew at the very beginning of me even making podcasts. I've been making a podcast for almost 5 years now. That was going to be one of my biggest weaknesses, and I'm starting to realize that in order to come on here and be able to give you guys the most value, it's going to look like living my life, having my own experiences that I can speak from, and then obviously being able to describe and be able to communicate my ideas to you guys. So that's all I have to say. Tap with the next podcast on Thursday, and you already know how it is, man. You have a good night.